Good evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show as we whip around the NFL in this week 6. And good Lord, what a week it was. There was a lot of crazy stuff that went on this week. Virtually all 4 of the top Super Bowl favorites struggled against their opponent, about 50-50 on pulling out a win, a couple big-time blowouts, a couple comebacks. Let's go around and check it all out. We'll jump right into the Thursday night action. Somehow the worst defense that any of us have ever seen in the Denver Broncos held the Kansas City Chiefs to 19 points. There was a moment later on where it looked like the Broncos were going to have a chance to come back and put together some kind of actual response here, but they were never truly in this game. Kansas City was in control the entire time. There was one drive where Kansas City had the ball where Denver was within a score with 8 points, so it still needed a 2-point conversion. They went down, kicked a field goal, put it back out of reach. So Denver is a terrible team. Kansas City did not play well, but they find a way to pull out a win. And that's what, good teams do. They find a way to pull out a win. I have no idea what this Denver team is going to do going forward. At least they own their own first round pick. So we'll see what they can do with the rest of that. It's a real mess. In the 1:00 action today, we saw the Baltimore Ravens pull out a tough game. Ryan Tannehill got hurt during this game. Malik Willis came in and took some of the most mind-melting sacks you've ever seen. Just really, really rough. Needed to get the ball out and consistently let Baltimore's pass rush get to him in situations where they had an opportunity to be able to kind of pull something out here and figure out what they needed to do. I don't think Baltimore looked great. Lamar was okay in this game. Didn't get Mark Andrews involved early. There was a nasty cheap shot by Jeffrey Simmons onto Zay Flowers that I can't believe wasn't a bigger deal. Not a super impressive game, but again, Baltimore pulled out the win. They were able to, not let our second-year quarterback come back on them. We'll see. Ryan Tannehill did have to get carted over for x-rays, so we'll see where that ends up as the week goes. Tennessee, I think, is just teetering on the edge of being able to remain in these games, and losing Tannehill is really going to put an issue there. DeAndre Hopkins, 1 catch for 20 yards. Interesting that when he said he wasn't chasing the money, he took the biggest contract from a team that's now 2-4 and might not even have Ryan Tannehill. So we'll see where that one goes. The Washington Commanders pulled out a win against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta looked good early, had some legit involvement from Kyle Pitts and Drake London, some of the best passing that we had seen from this team in a while. And for the first time that their run game really failed them, that you couldn't get a lot going from either Tyler Algier or Bijan Robinson. Washington's defense looked legit, and Sam Howell was moving the ball, taking shots downfield. He took some risks. There was a couple balls that probably should have been intercepted. He took 5 sacks. It wasn't amazing, but Sam Howell really does look like the younger Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's comical how much he looks like Fitz when he plays. Just screw it, somebody's open down there somewhere, and throws it out there. It was fun to watch, but I'm not sure what the ceiling is for a team like this. Both of them are now 3-3. There's going to be a weird collection of teams fighting for playoff spots down the line in the NFC. All of the NFC South teams lost this week, so Atlanta didn't lose any traction against the Buccaneers or the Saints. We'll get to their games in a minute here, but I'm not sure what the future is for any of these groups. We'll see where that one goes. Talk about another game where quarterbacks taking sacks. Obviously, I wasn't rooting for the Bengals here. I was kind of hoping for them. Seattle to be able to pull out a win. They were coming off a bye, felt pretty good about it. Kenneth Walker was running really tough. This was one of the worst. This was like Jets era Geno Smith stuff. The Bengals were okay. They weren't phenomenal today. Put up 17 points. Seattle doesn't have some amazing, miraculous defense. Joe Mixon couldn't move the ball. They ended up running for 3.1 yards a carry. Tried to force some balls to Jamar Chase. A couple balls. T. Higgins had a couple 50-50 balls that would have been nice to come down with, but they pulled out a win, and their defense did it. The Seattle passing game these 4 sacks that Geno Smith gave up were all 4 at the most critical moments in the game. He could not get himself to get rid of the ball, taking sacks on critical moments, including like fourth down plays and things, or just give your guys a chance, give somebody a shot to make a play on it. There's no downside in throwing it up on fourth down. Some third down plays where he didn't give anybody a chance, just really, really conservative, could not get himself out there. And again, credit to the Bengals defense for putting him into those pressured situations. Lou Anarumo was dialing it up when it mattered, and came with a good game plan. This certainly was a game where Seattle had an opportunity to win, and Seattle and Cincinnati's defense held on and was able to control that. This one was a blowout right from the beginning. Jacksonville jumped out in Indianapolis. Indy put together some scores here at the end that kind of made it look closer than what it was. This game was never in doubt. Gardner Minshew looked really, really rough. 3 interceptions. They were in a hole, so they never got the run game going with either Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor. Jacksonville really controlled things. Travis Etienne was explosive. Didn't look efficient because there was a lot of salting the lead away carries later, but his 2 touchdown runs were really impressive runs, breaking tackles, yards after contact, looked really, really good. Jacksonville, didn't need to take big shots down the field, so their overall stat line didn't look good, but they took advantage of the short fields from the turnovers from Minshew. Another fumble as well, so it was 4 turnovers total that they got from Gardner Minshew, and I just, Jacksonville's a good team. Obviously, they beat the Bills last week. If you give them 4 turnovers, that is going to end up in a loss. 9 times out of 10, that they're simply good enough to be able to convert there. They go to 4-2. The Colts have been hanging around, playing tough. This season still, I think, is more about the development of Anthony Richardson. So this stretch where he's injured, we'll see where that one comes. But Jacksonville is good enough to be able to hang with a lot of teams and maybe make some noise later on in the season. We'll see where that goes. Another 1 p.m. game that many Bills fans were watching. The Dolphins started this game super weird. You'll notice this first quarter, they started out with multiple 3-and-outs and let Carolina get to a 14-0 lead at one point. Before they came back and scored the 3-and-out touchdown before they got that ball back. It was in a weird spot where, I was like, are they going to let Carolina hang in this game? And they didn't. They came back, they pulled away, but that early start isn't something that Miami is going to be able to do against better teams. You can't dig a 14-0 hole and think you're going to dig out of it against everybody. Obviously, Miami's explosive offense is too much, especially for teams like Carolina. So Raheem Mostert had some really tough runs. Tyreek Hill had a couple big explosive plays. They were able to move the ball down the field and do some things. I think, you guys at Chris Brooks and Salvon Ahmed making plays here. Mike White came in mop-up duty and threw a pick 6 immediately on his first pass of the game, which was comical to see. So, again, Miami is really, really good. Right now, they're just beating the crap out of good teams. The Dolphins' 5 wins have come against opponents with a combined record of 4-22, and then you have the 48-20 loss against the Bills. I don't know what to expect of them later on, but they are obviously the most explosive offense in the NFL and are going to be a challenge for anybody to keep up with. So we'll see where that one goes. One of the uglier games of the day today. I won't lie. I did not watch a ton of this one, but I had my eye on it just so I could do the recap. Justin Fields dislocated his thumb. He popped it back in and then tried to be able to move along to play. And good for him in trying to do that, but that's crazy. You dislocate his thumb and your throwing hand. So we'll see where that one goes. That's going to require an MRI. I don't know what that's going to mean for the rest of their season. Obviously, the Bears have their own first-round pick plus the Panthers' first-round pick. It certainly looks like they're going to have their choice of top draft picks as it comes in. A lot of people like Tyson Bagent coming out, just a UDFA, really scrappy kid. He struggled. I don't know that he doesn't have future careers, maybe a backup, maybe a legit guy who can hang around in the league. But the idea that maybe he was going to be some special thing, I think got proven out pretty quick. Minnesota's defense is not special or spectacular, and they had him scrambling for his life the entire time throwing. I think he had a fumble on his first play and then an interception very soon after. So certainly something to watch as we go forward here. Chicago really struggling. Minnesota technically won, but I don't think they feel great about this one. Their first full game without Justin Jefferson. People were curious who would step up. You saw TJ Hawkinson get a ton of targets, KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison. That was all pretty expected. A lot of checkdowns from the backfield. Of course it was. It's Kirk Cousins. But if you're only putting up, 1 touchdown and 4 field goals against the Bears defense, Minnesota is going to be in trouble. And now winning their second game at this point is going to put them into a challenging spot from a draft position standpoint. So we'll see where that one goes. One of the most exciting games of the day wasn't the prettiest game, but one of the most exciting games of the day was San Francisco and Cleveland going back and forth. There was a handful of injuries on San Francisco's side. So being in a spot where they lose Christian McCaffrey at one point, he comes back in. They lose Deebo Samuel. He doesn't come back in. They lost another offensive lineman. San Francisco is, when healthy, I think the best team in the NFL. They have some really high-end talent. They choose kind of the stars and scrubs version of NFL football, where they have some super, super high paid players. And then they go with, our scheme is going to be good enough to coach up the rest of the guys. We don't need amazing depth at all these different positions. But if you lose some of those guys, all of a sudden it really makes a big difference. So this is not to take away from the fact that I think Cleveland has a very good defense, but anytime you take out Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey for a good portion of the game away from an offense, it's going to have an impact. There was rough weather. He was missing a lineman. He lost 2 of his best weapons throughout the game, but this was by far Brock Purdy's worst game as a pro. This is the first time he had ever lost a game that he started and finished. Obviously, they lost in the NFC Championship game but he didn't finish that game, so we don't know how it would have ended up against Philadelphia. This was his worst game as a professional. 12 of 27, 125 yards, threw an interception, 3 sacks, lost a fumble, or had a fumble. I think it was recovered. Just really, really out of sorts the entire game from Cleveland's offense, from Cleveland's defense. Cleveland didn't have a ton going, but PJ Walker made enough plays, threw some really ugly picks, but had a couple nice deep shots, specifically to Amari Cooper. Had a couple nice throws where he made some plays, some good tough running from Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. Pretty nice game from Kevin Stefanski, a couple well-timed screens when San Francisco was coming. Crazy back and forth at the end of the game where Cleveland went down to kick the field goal, maybe could have milked a little bit more clock. Then San Francisco got the ball, got a one big play with a yards after catch from Brandon Ayuk where he went down and got them into field goal range. And then San Fran kind of took their foot off the gas because they felt like, well, we're within range for only a 41 yarder. We don't need any more yards, and let the rest of the clock run down. And then, of course, their 3rd round pick, kicker out of Michigan, Jake Moody, comes in, misses his second field goal of the game, misses his first opportunity for a game winner, and the Cleveland Browns pull out a win against the heavily favored San Francisco 49ers, giving them their first loss of the season. Exciting win for Cleveland. We'll see what happens with Deshaun Watson and that team going forward, but that defense is going to keep them in virtually every matchup. Another one, I've said this every single week, the Houston Texans are for real. They're 3-3. They have now stomped the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have now beaten the New Orleans Saints. I don't know what to expect from this team. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars pretty heavily. Just a really, really gutsy performance. DeMeco Ryans is, coaching his butt off, has brought in some guys, and I think you really respect the veterans that they brought in. Robert Woods scored a touchdown and made a big-time play. Dalton Schultz scored a touchdown and made a big-time play. Devin Singletary looked good and came in. Those are all like veteran free agent signings that DeMeco Ryans pitched to them. Hey, this is not some tear-down horrible team. We're going to compete and try to win. And every coach says that. But the fact that he's followed through on it, and, probably CJ Stroud's worst start as a pro, he's been really good so far this year. 13 of 27, under 50% completion percentage, threw an interception, didn't break 200 yards. New Orleans defense is legit and good. And they found a way to win. These stats from Derek Carr are super garbage time, empty stats, a ton of throwing in the second half, but could not convert on any of them. I don't know what to make of that NFC South, but the Houston Texans are going to be tough. And Arizona, thinking they were going to get the top 2 picks in the draft, Houston is going to do everything in their power to make that not be the case. Um, Talk about another ugly game here. I was really torn. I was rooting for the New England Patriots just because I don't want them to get a good draft pick, and they're playing so poorly. So getting into a spot where Las Vegas was under, in control the majority of the time, had, a 13-3 lead at halftime, extended it out, and then all of a sudden New England scored. And I was like, all right, I hate it, but I got to root for them to try to come back and win. And they get it back and get close enough where it's 17-19 and they have the ball, and all they have to do is go down and kick a field goal to win the game. And Mac Jones takes a safety in the end zone to make it 21-17. And all of that, torment of deciding if I wanted to root for the Patriots all just evaporated away when I saw them taking game-losing safety in the end zone against the Raiders of all teams. Jimmy Garoppolo had to go to the hospital during this game. They lost to Brian Hoyer. There wasn't Devontae Adams was injured during this game. Of course, everyone should have banked on the Jacoby Myers revenge game coming back and scoring against the Patriots. I don't know what to make of this team. They got to decide if they're going to move on from Mac Jones. This team is now coming in to host the Buffalo Bills next week at 1:00 in Foxborough. And the Bills might have the opportunity to end the Mac Jones era in New England because they have to be close to pulling the plug on this. And maybe a thrashing from the Buffalo Bills will do that. We'll see if the Bills are capable of thrashing anybody. I don't know if they have that in their playbook here, but a couple last games to go. Detroit was never at risk in this game, just continued to pull away. Didn't pour it on like they have in some other games, but played tough. I think it was actually really impressive that in the game they could not run the ball, which, of course, you have Vita Vea and, Devin White and, Levante David and a fantastic Buccaneers run defense. So 22 carries for 40 yards, 1.8 yards a carry. That Jared Goff stepped up and played phenomenal. Really, really, distributed the ball around. We saw Jamison Williams kind of welcome back game, hit on a deep ball that tried to get him involved. And their defense played good enough. Baker Mayfield that had some good vibes going this season and started to really feel good about some things. And this Detroit defense just had him stifled the entire day. Could not get much of anything going. So Detroit is a team to be reckoned with, 5-1 now, right up there with the best record in the NFC, along with the other previously undefeated teams that have now lost and are going to have their name in the discussions all season long. So excited for Lions fans, very, very similar to Bills fans and all around the Great Lakes area here. Some good feelings about a lot of these teams and what they pulled off yesterday with big wins from Detroit and the upset from Cleveland. Another game that was never really close or all that interesting. The Rams really just kind of throttled Arizona for the majority of, especially the second half here. It was an ugly game in the first half, just field goals back and forth, nothing exciting. They finally got a little something going later on. Kyron Williams played phenomenal. Cooper Kupp with a huge game and the first kind of human Puka Nacua game of the season. Didn't really have a ton going on, but Kyron Williams ran like a madman. His touchdown run was super impressive, literally like carrying 3 guys to the end zone and pushing the ball in between 2 of them to break the plane. Really, really impressive game. And their defense, Josh Dobbs has come back down to earth after an exciting start to the season, just kind of scrambling around again. This Arizona Cardinals team is in a position where they scrapped, they played tough early on, and now they're stacking up losses and going to get what they wanted anyways. I think it was a great start from Jonathan Gannon and this coaching staff to get people to buy in. They're playing tough, they're playing hard, but they're not ruining it with wins, and that's about as good as you can ask for from a season where they weren't expected to win a whole lot. Another one of the most interesting games of the season here, the Philadelphia Eagles were upset by the New York Jets. The Jets defense played really, really well. I think that it's a credit to them to be able to pull out a win like this. They confused Jalen Hurts multiple times throughout this game, and got him to throw into coverage multiple times. I think the 3 interceptions is maybe not even indicative of how many balls he put at risk in this game. They tried to run the ball a fair amount with Jalen Hurts. You look at the rest of the running backs, 10 for 18, for DeAndre Swift, and not really able to get a whole lot going. They got the ball a lot to AJ Brown, but couldn't get a ton going. 11 targets to Devontae Smith, couldn't hit him downfield. Garrett Wilson actually left this game for a moment and came back in. They made enough plays to be able to hang around and stay in the game. Later on, when they got the ball, Philadelphia did let them score, and they actually probably could have even gone down. Breece Hall's touchdown, he probably could have gone down and taken more time off the clock, but Hurts came back and threw another pick. And just, I don't quite know. The Eagles are 5-1. They've had a couple weird games that were ugly that they scrapped out. They couldn't pull this one out. They're still really, really good, but something doesn't feel the same as last year. There's something that's not clicking in the same manner as what last year was, and we'll see what that ends up doing. And then obviously you guys saw last night the Buffalo Bills barely hung on to survive against the Giants. Didn't even score until the fourth quarter. Super weird game. But it's a game that I think in the rest of my lifetime of rooting for this team, the Bills would have found a way to lose this game. So they found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. I don't think they deserve a whole lot of flowers or excitement about what happened here, but they found a way to win. We'll talk later on with a lot of our shows this week on what are the next steps, what are the different things. Obviously, waiting on some health updates just to make sure everything's okay for Josh Allen and where those things go. And then tonight's action with the Cowboys and the Chargers, I think there's a lot of interest, really fun and exciting game, a game that both teams really, really need, and neither team wants to lose. You got Kellen Moore coming back against Dallas, and obviously, wanting to be able to get a win against his former team that he maybe thought he should have been the head coach of. So we'll see where that thing goes, but appreciate you guys. Again, tonight's show is sponsored by our guys over at Underdog. They've been fantastic to us. Make sure you're checking out all the things that they do. They have best ball drafts. You can go early on in the season. I've been checking on some of those. You can also redraft a new team each week. You can do their over-under contest where you pick which matchups think you're going to favor, higher or lower statistical outputs. You can use promo code COVER1 to get a match of the first deposit up to $100 and be able to get some money to play with there and have a good time. But appreciate you guys. This was a ton of fun. We'll do these each week. This is the last Sunday night game for the Bills, so most of these will be at halftime of the Sunday night game the rest of the season going forward, but wanted to be able to still check back in with you guys and have a little bit of fun as we survived, and I had to check my heart rate after that Bills game last night. But appreciate you guys very, very much. This was a ton of fun. On behalf of everybody at Cover One, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show, and we are out.